Welcome back to Arts Weekly. Joining me is Thom Hofrichter, Managing Director of the First Presbyterian Theater. He's here to talk about Shakespeare's As You Like It, now playing at the theater. Thom, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's always great to come here.
So Thom, you're running the First Presbyterian Theater. You're directing As You Like It. You're going to be the lead role in King Lear here at IPFW. My question for you, Thom, is are you insane?
A little bit, but it's been a Shakespeare year for me. I started off in first couple of weeks of August. I went down to Florida, Pensacola Shakespeare Theater, and I played Dogberry in a production of Much Ado. And I'm directing As You Like It. Then I go to play King Lear for John O'Connell asked me, and that's a mountain that every actor dreams of getting the chance to stumble up.
Yes, indeed.
Hopefully not fall down.
Well, you got the beard thing going on.
It's starting to get there. And then actually we're going to open next season with Henry IV.
Wow.
A new adaptation that Jack Canty's going to do, and I'm going to play Falstaff. So back to back, I'm going from Lear to Falstaff to amazing Shakespeare.
Well, you know, you can't get enough of Shakespeare. It's good stuff. But let's talk about As You Like It, one of his so-called pastoral comedies. Yeah, what is As You Like It about?
For me, it's very much a romantic comedy, like You've Got Mail, or in some ways,
What Women Want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's chick flick is the wrong way to think of it. Chick theater maybe, but it's this wonderful, wonderful play about what is love. How do people fall in love? How stupid are we when we fall in love? How do we that moment when you see someone and you just somehow your soul flies out of your body and does a couple of laps around the earth before it comes back, and you're dancing all the time and you're tongue-tied, and the world is just a prettier, brighter, lovelier place. Which is interesting because the world that Shakespeare starts the play in is horrible and ugly, but love conquers that horribleness.
So I always thought it was a play where girls dressed up like guys and fooled us.
Well, it's that too. Well, but that's a lot of Shakespeare. Shakespeare loves well, originally it was little boys who were pretending to be girls who then were pretending to be boys. Because when Shakespeare wrote these, all those female roles were played by men or young men.
That's just way too complicated.
Yeah. So there's some weird gender politics, and people have written academic articles about it, but I don't really understand them.
But you mentioned that that the play sort of starts off, as many Shakespeare plays do, in a bit of disarray. We have our heroine, Rosalind, whose father is usurped as the Duke, and
Correct.
She is banished out into the forest.
Yes.
So here we are out into the forest, where she meets up with Orlando.
With Orlando, and it's immediate. I mean, it is, they talk about Cupid, the blind boy who just shoots an arrow into your heart, and immediately they are magically taken with one another.
But the device is that she is not Rosalind. To disguise herself from getting caught by the Duke, she has disguised herself as a man.
Yeah, because she meets Orlando in the court in the city, and they kind of have that moment where they fall in love, and then she gets banished, so her and her cousin Celia go out to the woods, and she dresses like a boy, and there she runs into Orlando.
And they become friends.
And she's dressed like a boy, so she can't really tell him, let him know. So she starts this elaborate ruse about, why don't you come to me? You say you're so in love. I don't think you are. Why don't you prove it? Or you're so miserable because you're in love, because Orlando's walking around the forest going, oh, I'm so in love, I'm so in love. And everybody's going, oh, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And he's carving love poems on all the trees. And, and Rosalind says, if you are really miserable, I will make you stop being in love. Come and pretend that I am Rosalind, which she really is, and woo me, and I will break you of your love for her.
And isn't that one of
the conceit?
Exactly, and isn't that one of really the most intriguing scenes in the whole play? For those of us who've seen it, it's one of the few scenes, one of the many scenes, I should say, that you rarely come to see, because you have, Rosalind dressed as a boy telling the guy that she's in love with and who's in love with her how to woo her.
Right, exactly. And basically giving him the inside track, but in some ways kind of messing with his head, because again, this idea of, think about it, if you were able, that person that you fall head over heels in love with, if you were able to convince them to tell you really all the truth about themselves, to find out whether they were really worthy of your love, who wouldn't take that shot? And so that's kind of what she's doing too, is trying to get to the truth of who he really is, and is this love really a long-lasting love? And it turns out that yes, it is.
Indeed, it is. Also, it makes it romance. But to complicate things even further, and Shakespeare loves to do this. He's done a lot of people think of Shakespeare as stodgy stuff with a strange accent, but it's really pretty funny, and it goes in directions you don't expect, because he sort of did the same thing in Twelfth Night with the character Viola, who also is exiled and has to dress as a boy and ends up befriending the man who falls in love with her, but first as a boy. But the funniest thing is then, while Rosalind is dressed as a boy, as Ganymede, another girl falls in love with her.
And so which makes her go, no, I can't really love you, but I can't really tell the guy that I love him because I'm dressed as a guy. And meanwhile, the guy who's pretending that she is a boy keeps having these weird thoughts about this boy, and he's like, boy, that doesn't feel kind of right. I kind of am falling in love with him, her, but yet it's because she is pretending to be the girl I really love. So it is, Shakespeare just ties your mind in knots. And if you're listening to this going, I'm a little confused, Shakespeare makes it perfectly clear. There's no way to miss what he's doing on stage, because it's everybody's falling in love with everybody, and you get to see the human folly of what love is all about.
And that's what makes it fun. Of course,
absolutely.
As You Like It is famous for a particular line that most of us know of, and it's actually a soliloquy that's spoken by the character Jacques, and it's all the world's a stage. And all of us merely players. I probably have that wrong.
Yeah, no, it's all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. But it's this idea that and then he talks about the 7 stages.
The 7 stages of man.
When you're young, you're a little baby mewling and puking, and then you're a little boy who's going, fresh-faced to school, and then you start falling in love, and then you become the soldier, and then you become the businessman or the judge.
And you become fat in the belly, and you become powerful.
Yep.
And then you begin to get old again, and you revert to
your childishness.
You revert to a baby again.
Right, and the 7th stage is mere oblivion, sans teeth, sans eyes, sans everything.
Yeah,
this idea
mere oblivion.
That eventually, what Hamlet would call this quintessence of dust. This idea that we are all headed to, this physical body is headed to nothingness.
It's incredibly insightful, isn't it?
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful play. And one of the great things, we have a very talented actor, Mike Young, who 2 years ago went through some serious health crises. And we almost lost him. And hearing him do that speech gives me chills every night.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful.
What draws you to Shakespeare? Is it the language, the plot?
It's the language. The language.
I mean, just that one soliloquy right there is so magical. It's so poetic, and he doesn't talk like you or I, and he says it so much better.
Yeah,
he's better than me.
Well, and people always talk about, he's talking the way people talk back then. No, he's writing this incredibly eloquent poetry, and the beauty in Shakespeare, because the plots, quite honestly, he stole them all. He made them better after he stole them, but he stole all the plots from other people and rewrote other people's work. But he finds a way with beautiful, beautiful words to say what is locked inside every human soul, which is one of the reasons, obviously First Presbyterian Theater is in a church. And why do we do Shakespeare? Because we are looking for that connection with the human soul. What is it to be human? And boy, Shakespeare understood and was able to find a way through his art to reveal, in this case, what it is to fall in love and what that does to the soul. It's a beautiful play.
It really is. Now, some directors take Shakespeare and they change the time period. Obviously, Shakespeare wrote in the Elizabethan times. This play was written, I would assume, at the end of the 1500s.
Yeah, I think so.
But did you choose to set it back in that period, or are you?
No, we almost always change the period just for purely pragmatic, practical reasons. Number one, we don't. You're looking at the primary employee of First Presbyterian Theater. We have a tech director who helps us get sets up. Everybody else is really volunteers. So the costumes, the kind of costuming you're talking about, takes hundreds of thousands of hours when you are going into a professional Shakespeare company. So just making those costumes and getting those costumes is kind of prohibitive. So we usually set it someplace within the last 100, 150 years, just for pragmatic reasons, because we can't really afford the costumes.
But the language is still there.
Language
the play
is still there.
there.
And really, what he's talking about are eternal truths about humanity. So it really doesn't matter where you set it, or even if you set something like Macbeth, you set it in World War II, and it's like, how come they're fighting with knives instead of guns if it's World War II? You kind of forget about that immediately once you hear these words, and once you hear these characters revealing who they are and what their life journey is.
You speak about Shakespeare's words, and actually he has two fundamental ways that he uses language, does he not? He has the poetic, the verse, oftentimes rhymed, certainly in iambic pentameter, which is kind of the melodious 1-2-1-2 beat of words, but he also has prose.
Right.
And what is the function between the two different ways that Shakespeare speaks and uses language in his plays?
Generally, the prose, and again, Shakespeare, when you start talking about Shakespearean rules, like all great artists, he breaks his rules consistently. But the prose generally is for elevated moments and for elevated characters, and the prose is generally for the lower class characters and the more low characters, and the poetry is usually for the more upper class characters.
Well, that's something for us to remember when they watch the play. You know, I didn't realize it, but we're out of time now, Tom. But the play runs this upcoming weekend.
Yes.
You can catch it. I look forward to seeing it myself. And, you know, stay sane with all this Shakespeare you're doing.
And the audiences are laughing, laughing, laughing. So come laugh. Shakespeare's not as serious as we would all like to pretend sometimes.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
For more information about the First Presbyterian Theater and how you can get tickets for As You Like It, visit firstpresfw.org or call 422-6329. Missed us on PBS on Sundays? You can also check us out on the internet. Arts Weekly can be seen on YouTube and Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter. Just search for Arts Weekly. As always, Arts Weekly can be seen Tuesday through Thursday on College Access Television. I'm Chuck O'Connor. Thanks for tuning in to Arts Weekly. Join me next week with guest Karen Gibbons-Brown from the Fort Wayne Ballet and Sue Davis from the Orchard Gallery of Fine Art. See you next week.